Good afternoon. Happy Monday. This is Karen Curry Parker, and I am so excited to have you here as part of the Quantum Human Design Coach Forum. We are going to be every day, Monday through Friday, in this group covering core contemplations, if you will, about coaching and your coaching practice, and specifically looking at supporting you in building a coaching practice using quantum human design as a tool. This is a great conversation for you if you already know quantum human design. If you're exploring how to use human design in your coaching practice, we welcome you. This is a great place for you to learn a little bit more about why quantum human design is such a really powerful tool to use in your coaching practice. Yesterday, I kind of did a quick video. If you didn't see it, scroll down and watch it. We talked a little bit about traditional human design versus quantum human design, and I laid out for you a little bit about what we're going to be doing every day in the group. I just want to review what we're going to be doing every day in the group so that you can be ready. And I just want to let you know ahead of time, I'm in Washington State in Olympia right now. I'm with my oldest daughter who is getting ready to have my second grandbaby, and I have grandma duties. So normally, hopefully by next week, we'll actually have a set schedule for the exact time that we're going to be in here live on Monday through Fridays. This week it's a little bit dodgy with the time and timing. So I apologize if you miss the lives, or if you don't know when they are. I'm going to try to get in here every day this week and just give you a time, but there may be some variability on that this week just because of amazing circumstances. So on Mondays, our conversations are going to be about coaching skills. So today I'm actually going to talk a little bit about coaching models, or a coaching model. On Tuesdays, we're going to be talking about how to structure your coaching practice so that it is profitable and sustainable for you. On Wednesdays, we're going to talk about marketing and how to market and promote yourself correctly in accordance with your human design. On Thursdays, we're going to talk about specific coaching topics and how human design can help you address some of the key areas where your clients may be looking for support and encouragement and growth. So we're going to be talking about different kinds of topics, like how do you look at money and human design? How do you look at relationships in human design? How do you look at potential fulfillment in human design? How do you look at leadership in human design? How do you look at any kind of a coaching core topic that comes up with your clients through the lens of human design? And on Fridays, our focus is going to shift on Fridays to you as the coach. And on Fridays, we're going to talk about how do you as a coach stay sustainable, and how do you incorporate your understanding of your unique human design in your coaching practice so that you can continue to deliver the high quality service that you want to be giving your clients, so that you can stay in your joy of your coaching practice and not burn out, and really use your practice as not only your place of fulfillment for your life purpose, but also as a place where you go to work in a way that keeps you vitalized, engaged, and excited about every area of your life, because you are the foundation of your coaching practice. So today I want to talk about coaching skills. That's our topic on Mondays. And today I want to start with something that is, I think, very basic, but also very important, and sometimes an element of coaching that we tend to gloss over. Life coaching has a very interesting history. And as I shared with you guys yesterday, I trained at the very, very beginning of life coaching. I actually trained with Thomas Leonard when life coaching was just becoming a profession. It really was a profession that did not have certification. It was a profession that was a little bit different than consulting, but a profession that allowed you to really express your expertise, if you will, with your clients, and didn't really have a whole lot of structure or models associated with it, or even consistency in the way in which people coached. Now, in the beginning, there was actually a really big intention around not certifying people and keeping the coaching business out of the certification process. And over time, as the profession itself grew in its influence and grew as a profession, as a career path, there were organizations in some states that began to require that there were coaching certification programs and coach trainings. I'm kind of honestly feel a little bit mixed about both ways. I do think that coaching is a practice, and practice by nature requires a certain amount of expertise and a consistency around how you apply it. And you're not just somebody's best friend that you're listening to and giving advice to as a coach. You are a trained professional who has experience and knowledge and a process that moves people from where they are now to where they want to be in their life. And there are lots of different models for how to get there. And certainly human design gives us a certain model that we can use. So, I think that it is important to get training. I'm not going to say don't get training. I think it's very important to get training because you do have to have techniques, you have to have strategies, you have to have insights and information, you have to have ways in which you can work with people in an individual targeted way to move them to where they want to be, to support them in that movement that they're seeking through their relationship with you. And I'm not so sure that it has to be this extremely complex certification process. So I'm kind of, on the fence a little bit about you do have to know what you're doing. You do need to make sure that you get, if you don't have a good training, a good training. You can't just go hang up a shield and say, I'm a coach without really knowing how to work with people and move people. And that being said, I also don't think it's that complicated that there has to be extensive huge training programs and certification programs, more about certification programs versus training programs. But again, I have the 50 in line 4, the gate 50 in line 4 in my design. I'm a little bit of a rule breaker by design. So, I certainly would also say you have to do what makes you feel comfortable as a coach. And I would certainly hope that all of us as coaches would be deeply aligned with our place of service, and as a result of that alignment, willing to do whatever it takes to deepen our skill set so that when we show up in our place of service with our clients, we're bringing to the table a skill set that really allows us to solidly and consistently and with great expertise support our clients in creating what they want in their life. That being said, when I teach coaching, and I teach coaching through the lens of human design, I use a process, or I use a model that has built into it the idea that when people are seeking coaching, they're seeking coaching because something has happened in their life, a disruption, if you will. A disruption has happened in their life. Now, a disruption can be financial challenge, disruption can be relationship challenges, disruption can be a career crisis, disruption can be a lifestyle crisis. Maybe they want to create a different quality or character of the way in which they're living. Or sometimes it's a spiritual crisis or a relationship crisis or a health crisis. Something happens in people's lives that is disruptive. Now, when I teach my coaching students and we talk about disruption, I always teach that disruption is actually a call, if you will, from your soul. It's a call from the higher self that says, hey, you're ready for a growth cycle. You're ready for expansion. And in order for us to expand, in order for somebody to grow, they have to oftentimes disrupt their old identity. Your direction in life is set by the narrative you tell about who you are. The story you're telling about yourself, your life, your potential really sets the tone and the direction for your life. And we see this in human design. In human design, we know that the narrative you tell about who you are conditions the monopole, the G center, and it really influences the direction that your life takes. So when our clients go through these disruptive cycles, and sometimes those disruptive cycles are just waking up and saying, I'm really not comfortable with where my life is anymore. When they go through that disruptive cycle, they get kicked out into what I like to call the void. And they sit in this place where they're like, okay, I'm not who I used to be. This is what, when we talked yesterday about traditional human design, this is where the beauty of what traditional human design brings us in the coaching practice. It helps us see who you're not. And it helps us see who you don't want to be anymore, right? So we can look at traditional human design as a tool to help our clients really define who they thought they were when they were still living from a conditioned place, from a conditioned mindset. We can use traditional human design to help our clients really get clear about, hey, I don't want to be this person that I used to be anymore. I'm ready to really step into an expanded expression of who I really am. So they go from this disruption into this void cycle. And when they're in the void, they're looking back and they're saying, I don't want to be that anymore. That's not who I am anymore. But it's kind of a really interesting place when we're in that void place, because when we're in the void, after we've gone through the cycle of disruption, oftentimes we're really struggling to figure out, okay, well, who am I now that I have I'm not that person anymore. There's a gap, if you will, sometimes between who they were and who they're going to become. And this is, of course, where using quantum human design, we can deliberately and consciously work with our clients to begin to build a narrative about who they want to grow into becoming when they're in that void cycle, so that they have a target, if you will, or an exit strategy or a point B on the map that gets them out of the void into expanding into the life that they really want to be living. There's a lot that goes into that coaching model that I use, but I'm going to share with you guys just a very simple technique that I use as a beginning process to start the experience of exploring with your client when they're in the void and they've come out of this disruption, what they want to do, how they want to get themselves into that next level of building a new narrative and beginning the process of taking concrete steps to really making that path towards that fulfillment of that new narrative a possibility. So this is a model that's a very simple, very traditional coaching model that I like to use. And I want to encourage you guys this week to explore. Maybe you want to use this model, maybe you want to use a different model, but I want you to really contemplate this week, what model are you using in your practice? What's your pathway of taking people into the fulfillment of their potential, into the fulfillment of their intentions and their goals? How are you doing this? And are there things maybe you want to add, or skill sets you'd like to add, or new tools that you'd like to add to your coaching model that might make applying that model even more effective? So I will say that when I started using human design in my coaching practice, way in the beginning, in the early 2000s, I was a little bit worried, if you will, because it did make me a much better coach. It definitely let me get to the heart of where people were stuck much faster. And I did have to really redesign the way I structured my coaching practice, which is kind of what we'll talk about tomorrow, because I got so much more effective at getting to the root of why my clients were stuck and supporting them in really being able to know where they wanted to go. The vocabulary that I had available was so much bigger than my older, more traditional coaching vocabulary. But that's a rabbit hole. We'll go down that rabbit hole tomorrow, maybe. Here's the coaching model that I want to leave you with to explore and to really contemplate, how are you perhaps implementing some variation of this model in your coaching practice? This is a coaching model that's called GROW, GROW, an acronym that stands for goal, reality, option, and will. Okay, grow, reality, option, and will. So grow, the first thing you want to do when you're working with your clients is you really want to do an assessment. You've got to figure out not only who are they not, that's again part of the human design process, but who do they want to be? That's the goal piece. So that's that part where the quantum human design comes in so beautifully, because when we sit and we work with our clients, we know where they were. We know a lot about who they were being at that point. They're in the void. They've been disrupted. They're vulnerable, because sometimes when you get disrupted, it's easy to go back to the old because that's the known, right? So they're vulnerable. They're sitting in that place where they really want something different, but they don't know what that is. When we work with human design and quantum human design, what we do is we really explore in conjunction with our clients and using their chart, where do they want to be? And in that conversation about, this is who you are, this is your purpose, this is what your design says, this is your strength, these are the places where you may be conditioned, these are the places where perhaps you've been stuck, these are the places where perhaps you've been living differently than who you really are. Let's set a goal. Let's find the exit strategy from the void and move you to where you want to be. So step one is to really cultivate, Where do you want to be? And that can be more abstract in terms of really living into their quantum human design narrative. And it can also be much more concrete too, around really essential things like, where do you want to be in terms of money? Where do you want to be in terms of relationships? Where do you want to be in terms of lifestyle? Where do you want to be in terms of spiritual connection? Where do you want to be in terms of health and wellness? There are very concrete goals we can set here too with this conversation. The second part of that model is what we call reality check, right? So, this really comes from one of my very favorite Jim Rohn quotations. And I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Rohn, but I really love Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn used to say, if you're broke, take yourself to the bathroom mirror, look yourself in the eye, and tell yourself you're broke. Don't try to pretend you're not. Don't try to create some kind of fantasy about where you're not. Be honest, because when we are honestly assessing the current situation, then we can create an honest exit strategy. We can get out of where we are if we're looking at where we are. But sometimes when we're, especially I think when we're looking at new thought and we're looking at positive thinking, sometimes we have this idea that if we're thinking positive and we're really applying like consciousness principles, that means we don't look at where we are. It doesn't mean you don't look at where you are. It means you have great expectations about where you're headed, but you have to be realistic about where you are. If you're not grounded. And the coaching goals you set with your clients aren't going to be grounded. And you've got to be grounded because you've got to be able to function in the 3D reality. You still have to be able to go buy groceries and pay your rent. And that gets very interesting, particularly when we're looking at types like burned out projectors, maybe, who are really wrestling oftentimes with having the vitality and the energy for work when they're really struggling financially. So you have to get realistic with your perspective on where you are, not because it's supposed to be depressing and doom and gloom, but because being realistic keeps us grounded and it keeps us building towards goals that are workable and attainable and realistic, and allow us to make sure that we're covering the basics on a foundational level with our coaching clients so that they've got that foundation, that solid foundation in place around things like money and security, so they can do the higher level work necessary to fulfill their potential. Because if that basic foundational piece, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if that basic foundational piece isn't in place, it's very hard for you to do that other higher level stuff about activating your full potential. So the next section, the next part of the coaching model I use is called options. And that is, what would you do or what could you do to get there? And this is basically a section in our coaching model that I use where we're brainstorming. We're exploring what options could you use. And of course, those options have to match your type and your strategy and your energy. They have to match your human design. So, you're not going to tell a projector to like start cold calling and making calls to try to land a job, right? That might be okay for a manifestor who's got internal alignment for it, but you've got to really look at, how does my client's energy work? What does my client's chart say? What are the strengths in my client's chart? Where are they connected? Where is their energy working most effectively? And with that in mind, how can we build realistic options that support them in living true to themselves and creating what they really want in their lives? Which brings us to the final step in the coaching practice, the will. And it's not about the will center. This is about, what will you do? What actions of all of these things we've explored, which ones are the ones you're going to choose and take action on? And of course, that's where, as a coach, there's also the accountability piece. But here's the thing that we have to really be mindful of. Not everybody's going to commit to options, to taking action on options in the same way. So you also have to take into context your client's chart and look at that chart in the context of, how does this person commit? Where does this person access the energy for the action? And how do they access the energy for the action? So how do we need to structure this decision around, what am I going to do, in a way that reflects their human design, so that they are taking action in an aligned way that facilitates and supports them in really tapping into the full authentic expression of their chart and their energy, and takes into context where they're at with their energy at that point in time, and where they are with their connections to the world at that point in time. So that's my conversation today about coaching models and coaching skills. Again, looking at, what model are we using? What model do you use? This is, again, the model that I use. There's a lot more that goes into that model. Obviously, it's not that simple, but it's also pretty simple. It can be just goal, reality, option, will, grow. But there are other subtleties, especially when we start talking about what happens when we're in the void. That's my favorite topic. That's what I'm going to talk about next Monday with you guys. We'll talk about what happens to your clients when they're in the void, when they've gone through this disruption and they are redefining the story of who they are. What do they need to really build a strong narrative when they're in that void phase? But for today, I want to encourage you to post below. Talk to me about your coaching models. Tell me about what coaching models you're using and how you are applying those in the context of human design with your clients in your practice. And I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about structuring your coaching practice so that it's sustaining you as well as serving your clients at your highest level. Bye.